Hi everyone, it's Dr. Lepore, and I wanted to talk to you a little bit about values and identity today. So basically, how does who you are influence what you do? There is a huge link between this. It makes sense, of course, right? Who you are and what you do make up your life, but it goes a lot deeper. So let's get started. So before we do, though, I want you to take a look at how an average college student spends their time during a day. So if you're looking at it right now, you'll notice that, college students tend to sleep more than 8 hours. They tend to spend about 4 hours on things that bring them pleasure. Um, they spend maybe little over 2 hours on work and related activities, 3.5 on going to classes and doing classes, an hour at least on eating and drinking. I've had students who spend more than that though. Um, Part of an hour grooming, and maybe an hour to an hour and a half in travel. So if you take a look at this, right, this example here, it kind of gives you a sense of, how you might spend your time, adjust it for yourself. But here, this is interesting, right? How people who are employed and have children spend their day is very, very different. So if you look at it, it says, here is how you'll spend your time 30 years after graduation. Okay, let's really think about that. So that can be a really upsetting thing to consider. But your life definitely changes when you're not a college student. Or if you're a non-traditional student who is attending college, but also working and has a family or a combination, um, you know, your time breakdown definitely is going to change. So here, less than 8 hours of sleep. Leisure time is like 2.5 hours, where you get to pick what you want to do. Work is often up to 9 hours a day. Um, but you can see that how you're splitting up your time definitely changes. I can tell you, as a parent and as a professional, my time is definitely different than it was in college. Although I was non-traditional, I worked my way through my undergrad, my grad, and my doctorate. I wonder if I have a chart like this somewhere. Could be interesting. Anyway, I digress. Here are a couple takeaways from this. So the first one is to know that you will sleep less when you start working full time. Those of you who are already working full time know that sleep is the one thing that gets shortchanged constantly. Leisure time diminishes, but work, the actual amount of time that you have to spend engaged in work, goes up. Okay? So the question is, how are you going to spend that 8.5 hours or more that you're going to work? So I want to return to this diagram from last week, that job satisfaction is found in the intersection of what you value, what you're good at, and what there's a market for. Okay? So what you value, the things in your life that are most important to you, okay? The things that you are good at. Okay? And that doesn't just mean things you have a natural ability at, but the things that you can work at and get good results. And then where there is a place to use it that has market value so that you can pay your bills. As this one person once said, it's great to feed your mind and feed your soul, but you also have to feed your belly. Okay? So that's another way to look at this diagram, right? Your mind, your soul, and your belly. All right, so let's talk about these languages. Talk about these values. Okay? So purpose is syncing your choices and behavior with your core values. And this is a gradual process. You don't make a life change in a moment, although we've had a lot of them. And I just realized that this is still showing all the placeholders. Sorry about that, guys. That's not so elegant. But this quote is really important. The purpose of life is not to be happy. It is to be useful, to be honorable, to be compassionate, to have it make some difference that you have lived and lived well. That's a great quote. Happiness is the byproduct of an honorable, useful, compassionate life. Making a difference is what brings you happiness. You can't chase it. I actually have a book on my desk called Plato's Lemonade Stand. And it talks about it. It talks about that the goal is not to find happiness or construct happiness. It's to construct a good life. And that will bring happiness, or whatever happiness is to us. So this week you're going to do a required class activity. okay, where we're going to look at your values and look at how you can change your life. Okay? So continuing on in here, something to talk about is I do want you to think about that people in the same major may not make the same amount of money. Okay? There's a lot of factors that go into this. If we can take a computer science degree, not all computer science majors go into the same part of computer science, nor do they all make the same amount of money. Okay? So in this case, on average, people in the same major do not generally earn the same amount. It can vary widely. Okay? And that's because what we're talking about are not degrees that say this is exactly what I do. A practical degree, for instance, a nursing degree, a teaching degree, they tell you the practice that you're entering. Okay? But in a liberal arts degree, there's a lot of ways to use your education. So thinking about your values, this is part of the exercise you're going to do. You're going to get this list of suggested values, and I want you to circle the ones that you believe will bring you a good, purpose-filled life. And I want you to box in, so square around the ones that you associate with meaningful work. This is going to help you along the way. You're going to have some other questions as part of the exercise too, but this is going to get you started. So for me, I know that things that I consider good and purpose-filled life, authenticity is really important to me. Okay? Autonomy, I would put as something that I associate with meaningful work. I'm not one for balance. I'm usually all in or all out, so I'm not going to put that on my list. Compassion is a huge one, and I'd actually put that in both categories. So I want you to work through this list, and I want you to actually sit down and think about it. So maybe the first time, you mark a couple things, you come back and say, do I really believe that? Or is that what I want people to believe about me? Or is that what I believe that I should answer? That's going to get you started on that assignment that we were just mentioning, right? That you're going to be doing this required class activity, which is up on Canvas. Continuing on, trying to keep this one a little bit shorter than last week. Identity matters, okay? All of those things that we just talked about, all of these values that are important, they are going to go into who you are as a person. So a couple things that you do want to know. I mean, your identity is made up of the things that you value and the skills that you have and the beliefs that you have around yourself, but also what the world believes about you based on the things that they see, right? The identities that they give you or identities that you hold that you cannot really change. So gender is an issue when it comes to career. Okay? There is definitely a wage gap, okay, for women, and women make less than men. Okay? Race is also an issue. Okay? And this is something where we could have a whole discussion. So I'm going to start holding some office hours. I'm still waiting for a few more replies. Hint, hint, reply on that poll. Let me know when. And maybe we can have some of these discussions to figure this out. Okay? Because the identities we hold, we need to be aware sometimes of how this can affect us so we can plan to prevent it from hurting us. Okay? There are some other things that come into play too. One of them is that in the liberal arts, sometimes we pick jobs that pay less. Okay? Some of this is associated with gender. So for instance, K-12 teachers do not make a lot of money. It is just one of those things. A lot of the helping careers and the service careers do not make a lot of money. And those are choices that people make. And if you're making them intentionally, that is fine. But you do want to pay attention to these things as you work through your career journey. The individual career choices you make and what employers are looking for can create some pretty different outcomes in terms of how much money you make. Employers in different job markets are going to differ a lot in terms of what they hire for, the skills that they want, the experiences they prioritize, and the biases that they may hold. We can't change them, but we can be aware. So occupations are another fancy way of saying jobs. Okay, maybe inching towards careers in this case. More categorization. So we have over 460 occupations in New Jersey that pay over the median New Jersey salary, which is good. So these are just some to look for. So recapping, I just want you to remember that our goal is to figure out where you're going to find job satisfaction. And it takes place at the intersection of what you value, right? That's that core values we're going to work on. What you're good at. I want you to start thinking about the skills that you have. Is talking to people good come easy to you? Are you really good at writing? Okay? And what is there a market for? Where are there jobs? Where are we going to find a fit for you? Because there is a fit. Right? There is a job, and I know it feels pretty terrible when we look at what's going on, but nothing stays the same, and that sometimes occurs. But for us right now, it gives us hope that we know things will change. In 3 months, in 6 months, in a year, in 2 years, our life will look very different than it does today. So as we finish up, I want you to start to think. Do you think your identity, or what other people think of your identity, has affected your thoughts about the careers that are a good fit for you? Okay? Have you chosen your major based on what other people think you should be good at or which would work for you? Sometimes they're right and sometimes they're wrong. I started off as an art major. Wasn't the right major for me, not at the time. My parents were right in that moment and they were wrong in the long term. It would have been a good fit. And I've had a really good time as a professional photographer over the years. But how does identity, what you have decided is your identity, and what others have given you, affect you? Okay? And what can you do as you start this chapter, this lesson? Well, I want you to be aware of your motivation. I want you to think about why are you interested in this career? Is it for money or is there something else there? What is going on? How do these align with your core values? Okay? A job that pays well, that you're good at, but makes you feel bad every day isn't going to work for you. You're not going to be successful. So we want to bring all these into alignment so they match. Okay? And we're going to re-examine and readjust this, not just in this class, but constantly for the rest of your life. All right? I'll see you on Canvas. Bye, everyone.